Scott? Get your hand up.
Thanks, Mike. Let me lower that. I was hoping to look into H-20 a little bit more. It's on page 4 of the policy document. It's regarding inclusionary zoning. I was hoping to maybe ask staff to look into further changes to the H-20 policy, being that inclusionary zoning is very successful in other locations, and I don't really see any reason why it wouldn't be in Bellingham. And I was wondering if there was a chance to make modifications. I have a draft that then you can take a look at and bring back to the commission with further changes. And it would read something like, after an inclusionary zoning study is accomplished, as soon as possible with accepted requirements and triggers, monitor the residential development economy for opportunities to implement a mandatory inclusionary affordability zoning program without significantly reducing overall housing production. So it changes the word develop to implement and adds the first 2 lines regarding the study. And I was hoping the staff could be able to bring back to us any ideas about how to make this more robust.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments on this policy point tonight from the public. I'm curious. The policy as I read it today is already pretty specific and like I mean, okay, so a goal is like, what is the goal for this section? Foster housing that is affordable for all income levels in all neighborhoods. Okay, broad strokes goal. And then under policies, we have lots of prescriptions that are of various levels of detail. Like within IZ, there's been programs tried all throughout the country, some flavor of mandatory, voluntary, different parameters. I don't know. I worry that the MFTE study we just did is a very good, close approximation to what we might find of an economic market analysis for IZ feasibility. Generally, IZ studies show often early IZ programs negatively impact production. They tend to do better in larger markets with higher rent and higher demands, and we're not a larger market. So I'm open to additional studying. I would hate to tie us to something that could negatively impact housing production. Wherever the language ends up being, I think the language there today couches both of those, the opportunities of IZ and the potential negatives of IZ, to make sure we're not creating harm via good intentions.
Wouldn't the study be able to make sure that requirements and triggers would only be applicable and the whole system would only be initiated if it was going to support affordability, and as it says here at the end, without significantly reducing overall housing production? And it has been proven that small communities smaller than Bellingham benefit from this type of zoning. And we do have high rental rates. We do have density issues. That's why it's a lot of what we're getting into with the comprehensive plan. And to make sure that something is in place so that when triggers do allow, that we can actually implement and not have to go through a whole year, multi-year long process. Once we found out that maybe something might work right now, it might be too late. And so to go through this and to actually lay it all out and have the plan in place isn't asking for too much, because if those triggers don't trigger, then nothing happens. But why couldn't we look into it and to make sure that we're ready when it's time?
Along those lines, thinking about like the mandatory versus voluntary and the MFTE program, I saw the presentation that was at City Council's work session a couple of weeks ago. It was great to see that the 12-year and 20-year are being considered citywide. Those are some pretty epic changes. And then we do know that, and one of the policies in here is like, what are the other tools and incentives that we can build upon that with to help sweeten the pie, to make that those programs more successful. And right now with the MFTE research that we have, we know that right now under today's market conditions, it's going to be rough. Nobody's building anything right now. And as an affordable housing provider, it's especially hard right now, right? So I know that it's and it's a dynamic. Like housing is dynamic, right? And we are always changing, and the markets are always shifting. So where we can create, where we could start working on a voluntary program that's robust and has as many tools in the tool belt as we can, and see how well that works. And if that starts to be really successful and we're saying, okay, well, like that could be an indicator that now we could probably make it more mandatory in certain areas when we see like it taking off in Cordata neighborhood or wherever that might be, but that would be, that versus having to do another study. We could just like see the real world impacts when we have those tools available to us.
I think that's what the thinking for staff for adding. I mean, we did feel, that making the change to this to include that instead of just talking about inclusionary zoning, saying a mandatory program, we felt like that was an important change. But with the MFTE study being done so recently, and that study did look at middle scale housing, it looked at more traditional, larger scale apartment styles, and also the mixed use podium with residential above format. So kind of the three forms we would anticipate probably seeing a lot of in Bellingham and have seen a fair amount of. And yeah, the economics of it the market last year when that study was done, it was super challenging, and none of, whether it was just market rate by itself, the 8-year market rate incentive program where there were no taxes paid for 8 years on the improvements for the project, or certainly the 12-year with the affordability option, none of them were penciling out. Even the 8-year program, it wasn't penciling. So yeah, we felt like it's important to keep tabs on, particularly with the expansion of the 12-year program, to see are we going to get some participation in that program, and then if we do, to start to look at, okay, well, where can we adjust things? It's also important to remember that we also have a variety of other incentives for affordable housing, that what effectively is kind of like a voluntary program. We give significant infrastructure impact fee discounts for affordable housing. We give expedited permit review. We give density bonuses with our demonstration ordinance. We have a variety of things over the past 10 or 15 years that we've adopted to incentivize in any way that we can that kind of voluntary affordable housing. So yeah, I think that's the approach that we envisioned, was keeping very close tabs on the market. We do have a policy that does support a mandatory program, but importantly, when the market when we can make sure that we can do that and not turn off the production of housing, because right now we just find ourselves in that we just need units everywhere. So that's the
Chris,
the other piece is to just remember that we have, when we've got a chart in our office, we have 13 ordinances to push through in the next 18 months. So and just about every one of those deals with the housing market in one way or another, whether it's the middle housing bill or design standards, revisiting the parking conversation in a year, the whole variety of things. So it is something that we're not saying let's put the blinders on and look at the housing market in 18 months or 24 months. We're watching it every day.
May I follow up? Now, of course, we're not asking for right now. So whatever the market is right now doesn't matter. It's when the market is ready is the key. Chris, could you elaborate on how long from recognition of the market being ready and monitoring it to go from, okay, we're ready to go with inclusionary zoning? How long would it take to implement, to go through the whole process, planning commission, city council, and actually have it on the ground?
I don't know. That's hard to say. A study, I imagine, you could probably get a study done within a year, and then code amendments would need to follow that. So, yeah, hard to say exactly how long that would take, but it's something that we've done. We've like I said, we have the multifamily tax exemption study as an example that was done inside of a year. There are, similar code amendments we've done, like the multifamily tax exemption code updates we're in the midst of right now. You can say that maybe would be within 6 months, but again, it would just depend on the complexity of the program and how many zones we're talking about applying it in.
And then being that this is one of the strongest tools we have to beat back the affordability crisis, which we all know we're in, you would think that, or I would think that this would be a highest priority. And we know, like you just said, we have a voluntary inclusionary zoning program, essentially. Without it being mandatory, we're just setting ourselves up for failure. And with the mandatory, along with density bonuses, the use of parking requirements, which is a standard, very powerful tool, variable height and site coverage, these are all chat recommendations from 2008, along with expedited permit review. That with mandatory so that landlords have stability in the marketplace, knowing that everyone is equal across the board, just seems like the solution, if not others, but the solution for now to actually fight back this housing crisis that we're in for affordability for our workforce. So I was just hoping that it could be put higher on the priority list if possible. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
So, we talk about this toolbox, which I feel like we've kind of stripped the toolbox clean. We had tools in place to create affordable housing, workforce housing, and we've given those away. We've put all of our eggs in one bucket towards market rate housing. And we see, you guys have brought us the charts that say, we need way more below market rate housing than market rate housing. And yet we have taken all of the abilities to try and shift the builders, the developers into those things. And we just gave them all that stuff in that toolbox with no requirements. We already have a 6% reduction in permit requests across the nation. We aren't facing a small downside. We are facing a slaughter of people who are going to lose their housing, that are going to be looking for other housing. We're sitting here and pretending like none of this is happening. This is just business as usual, nothing to see here. And what if you guys are wrong? What if you're wrong? And we put all of our eggs in that bucket and they stop building anyway. And then we don't have anything in place to try and get the housing that we do need. Why not do this? Why not add this in? I mean, if we don't need it, we don't have to use it. But if we don't have it there, we just don't have it. And the time to try and build this kind of stuff isn't when 90% of seniors are living on the street because their Social Security checks don't come. We're there. I've been watching this downward slide into more and more people being less and less able to afford rent for 20 years. 20 years. I mean, the Housing Authority list is closed, and it's been closed for 5 years. And even when they do deem it to open for a little bit, the massive amount of people that apply is just overwhelming. And yet here we are, we're still not doing anything to help these people. We get people day in and day out, every time we come here, that are saying, please, please help us. Please do something. And yet, nothing to see here, business as usual. Why? Why can't we just take a chance on this, please? We already have a 6% vacancy rate in our market rate housing right now. No vacancy rate in below market rate housing. Just
Cool. We're past time. I think we all carry the weight of these challenges on our shoulders, and I guess good discussion on IZ for you guys to chew on some more.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all the feedback. It's great to hear the suggestions. And Barbara, I appreciate we are all experiencing this every day, and we again appreciate your comments. And I think we understand, like when we showed those housing charts with the where we're short on from the middle income affordability down, the only bright spot is the housing that we're able to provide through the housing levy, where our community as a whole has voted to tax themselves to provide that. But like we showed, it's nowhere near enough. There are just some extraordinary needs out there. So I understand your comments, and I would just say that we feel that every day as well. So again, appreciate you voicing it.